Well, hello, Chris. How are you?
Can you hear me? Hey, John, how are you? I'm
You're
good.
looking great. How's the new
Well,
job
thanks.
going?
What's that?
How's the new job going?
It's good. I'm in Columbus, Georgia again this week. So,
You are. Wow.
yes.
You're not too far from home then.
No, just 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours, something like
You can't do that every day.
that. I try to stay within a day's within at least, 5 or 6 hours from home. I try not to go too far.
Uh-huh.
At least driving wise. If I'm going further than that, I'm flying because
Yeah. How,
no.
how's Rachel doing with her welding class?
She she's good. She'll actually be on here in a minute because they're
Oh,
done.
is she good? She's with you?
No, she's at home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's at home, but she'll be on here in a minute. But she did pretty good. She'll tell you about it.
I'm so excited for her. Is she plan to use that?
Sure. How yet? I don't know, but she wants to do something. I think her main goal is just to be able to fix things around the farm.
Uh-huh.
But I also think that she's been watching a bunch of fabrication channels and stuff on YouTube, and I think she wants to make stuff. So I I'm happy if she's happy. If she wants to do stuff like
Yeah.
that, I'm happy to support her.
Yeah.
Um and also it gives us more toys at the house. So I mean it's
Sure.
win-win. It's
Oh,
win-win.
I was just going to say, there's a young lady I met this summer
Hmm.
who was a graduate of, gosh, I can't think of the name of the college, but a nice, a well-known university. And I don't remember what her degree was in, but she decided that she was going to learn to be a welder. And she has a persona like Rachel. Okay, and
Yeah,
that's positive. Okay, she's you and I probably worked around a lot of welders in our life, and they have a certain persona. Anyway, she doesn't fit that persona, but she is so good that she's working. They got her working in all these chemical processing plants, and she's earned
okay.
tons of money working 2 or 3 days a week.
I believe it.
I mean,
Um
tons of money.
yeah, pipe fitting is where it's at. Like if you can travel, pipe fitting is where the money's at,
And
especially processed
that's
pipe
what she's
fitting.
doing.
That's awesome. Good for her.
And I don't think she's 26 years old.
Oh, yeah. If she can get her own gear and her own setup and travel, she's got a career for the rest of her life. I mean,
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Well,
it's
ever since I was a kid and all through the Navy, I've dealt with thousands of welders
I
building new
bet you have.
plants and everything. And to see somebody with that kind of poise and and somebody that you would never say, well, that's a welder.
Right. It's
And then she
it's
starts telling you her story. My gosh, she's got the world by the tail at 26 years old.
good for her. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So
some of the best welders I've ever seen have been women. There are not that many of them, but they're so
no,
detail oriented and yeah, the trick is just getting into the job sites,
yeah.
is getting past the foremen and getting past the supers and getting the work. Yeah,
Well, all of those things, and it's that attention to detail and the fine motor skills.
you got it.
I my
And actually, it's easier because their hands are a bit smaller and so it's easier for them to get into the tight spaces to
yeah.
do the work. I have a hard time doing it.
Oh,
But
you
Rachel,
can weld too?
I mean, I can use the metal glue gun and stick some metal together. I mean, I don't know if
Every
I'd call it like
farmer can, but that doesn't make you a welder.
correct, correct.
I I had a lot of people apply for work, especially down here, that claimed
Uh-huh.
to be mechanics or claimed to be this or claimed to be this, but the welding was always one they always said they can do. Well, that farm welding's a lot different than than
Than
welding.
real welding.
Yeah.
Hey, Sue.
Hey,
How
how
are
are
you?
you? We were,
Good. I haven't gotten rid of it. Sorry, it's still
Oh,
here.
yeah. And it's not even a nice one.
well, I think it looks good, Sue.
No, I mean, because it's not nicely trimmed so that
Oh,
it's,
but I've gotten many compliments in the last 2 weeks on this beard by random strangers.
oh,
So,
well, I'm glad to hear somebody likes it because I don't.
Sue, I got a
oh,
quick question for you.
I have an answer for you.
Brown University. I always thought Brown University was in New Jersey,
No, it's in Providence, Rhode Island.
and that's the only location for Brown University?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Are you thinking of Rutgers, maybe?
No, because when I was in the Navy, a good friend of mine went to Brown University, and I always thought that it was in New Jersey. I guess we
Nope.
never talked specific
Specifically
location.
about where it was.
Yeah, because I was in
Rachel, are
Providence
you
a
done
lot.
with welding class?
Yeah, yeah. Here's
Yeah, for the
Rachel. Yeah.
semester. We're off until January, so yep, I'm
How
back.
long was the course going to last?
Well, it's a 2 years in principle, but I might go slower because I'm not taking all of the classes all every semester.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rachel, I was just bragging on you with Chris.
Oh yeah? Why?
Yeah, I was telling him about this lady that I met that graduated from a well-known university in the Southeast. I don't know where it was, and she was about 26 years old, and she had so much poise. She was a lot like you, and she decided she was going to take on welding rather than the degree she had. She took on welding and she is so busy. And she told me how much money she was making working 2 or 3 days a week or in these chemical processing plants.
Yeah.
And she was so good. I mean, she just finished and she was making phenomenal amount of money. I couldn't even dream of making that kind of money. I
But
mean,
Rachel, you're
relative
not doing
speaking.
it for work. You're doing it, I thought, so you could do artwork.
No, no, well, we'll just, I don't know. Yeah, not for art, but like for working around the house and then, yeah, we'll see if I can cut it, if I can get some jobs. I don't know.
Well, with all of what's going on around your area and all the industrial development, I'm sure that there's an opportunity for you to do something 2 or 3 days a week like this lady, and help you buy new farm implements.
Yeah.
ah,
Yeah, or
My,
buy old farm implements and make them fixed.
yeah, buy some of those big new green machines.
Right?
hey, Fred.
Hello,
Hey
Fred.
guys.
Hey,
Oh,
Fred.
Rachel, welcome back.
Hey,
Rachel,
yeah.
have you finished your welding course?
For the semester, we go back in
Um,
January, but I don't have a
um,
night class on Tuesday next semester, so we should be good.
okay. Okay.
Oh,
So
good.
we have a team back.
Because we
Okay.
have missed you, Rachel.
Oh, well, thank you. I missed this.
We miss Rachel and Chris.
I missed y'all.
Yeah.
Hey,
Iffy
another,
about Chris, but we missed Rachel.
Oh, oh, that hurt.
We have a new addition, it looks like.
yeah, my
Yeah.
name is Michael.
Hi, Michael.
Oh,
Nice to
Hi,
welcome.
meet you.
Michael.
I
Welcome.
live in Greensboro, but I was in Greenville last weekend and visited Congregation Beth Israel, and I'm here tonight,
Oh, we're
Good.
glad to have you.
Yeah.
Hmm.
and
Okay.
will
Well,
be here every week.
good.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Well, okay. But last week we had gotten up to chapter 39 in Genesis. we're just getting into the story of Joseph. And chapter 39 picks up after Joseph's brother has sold him into slavery in Egypt. So this starts off his actual career in Egypt. Um, if somebody wants to go ahead and read it, it's a little bit long. It's about 23 verses. Somebody want to read chapter 39?
Sure, I'll go ahead.
Sure.
Now Joseph had been brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of the Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, had brought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man, and he was in the house of his Egyptian master. His master saw the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he had to succeed in his hands. So Joseph found favor in his sight and attended him, and he made him overseer of his house and put him in charge of all that he had. From the time that he made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. The blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in his house and field. So he had left all that he had had in Joseph's charge, and because of him, he had no concern about anything but the food he ate. Now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance, and after a time, his
Um, John, can you stop just for a second? I want to interrupt you for a second. There's a couple of interesting things in there. One is about I put everything into Joseph's hand except for his bread, and it's kind of interesting. It turns out that the Egyptians had their own dietary rules, just like the Jews were later to have,
oh,
and so they could not eat food which was handled by a non-Egyptian. You'll see it later on the later chapters when Joseph's brothers come down to visit, during the famine when they come down to buy food. When he eats with them, the Egyptians eat separately, because Egyptians are not allowed to eat with these Hebrews who've come down. But we don't know exactly what the Egyptian dietary laws were, what was permitted and what was off limits. But apparently there were very strict dietary laws, and this is why Joseph is not allowed to mess with the food. Everything else is under his control in the house. The other thing, which is right at the end of verse 6, it says that Joseph was a beautiful form and fair to look on. The actual Hebrew is Yafat Toar Vayifei Moreh. And there's only one other place in the entire Bible where that Hebrew phrase occurs. Anybody guess where it is?
David,
It describes only one other person in the Bible.
David.
No, his mother Rachel. This
Oh,
is how Rachel's described when Jacob first meets her. And actually, it may be a clue to why Joseph was such a spoiled brat when he was a kid. Why his father focuses on him. He looks like his mother.
ah,
Yeah. Go ahead. I just want to stop it
okay.
there.
Now, Joseph was handsome in form and appearance, and after a time his master's wife cast her eyes on Joseph and said, "Lie with me." But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Behold, because of me, my master has no concern about anything in the house, and he has put everything that he has in my charge. He is not greater in this house than I am, nor has he kept anything from me except you. Because you are his wife, how then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" And as he spoke to Joseph day after day, he would not listen to her or lie beside her or to be with her. But one day, when he went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the house was there in the house, she caught him by his garment, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his garment in her hand and fled and got out of the house. And as soon as she saw that he had left his garment there in her hand and had fled out of the house, she called to the men of her household and said to them, "See, he has brought among us a Hebrew to laugh at us. He came into me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice. And as soon as he had heard that I had lifted up my voice and cried out, he left his garment beside me and fled and got out of the house. Then she laid up his garment by her until his master came home, and she told him the same thing. The Hebrew servant whom you have brought among us came in to me to laugh at me, but as soon as I lifted up my voice and cried, he left his garment beside me and fled out of the house. As soon as his master heard the words that his wife spoke to him, "This is the way your servant treated me," his anger was kindled, and Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined, and he was there in prison. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever was done there, he was the one who did it. The keeper of the prison paid no attention to anything that was in Joseph's charge because the Lord was with him. And whatever he did, the Lord made it succeed.
Yeah, yeah. Joseph has this thing about him. Wherever he goes, everybody likes him immediate, and he's very attractive, both his personality and physically. And he comes into this Egyptian's house as a 17-year-old slave, and ends up as the chief steward, running the whole household. We're not told how long that took or how many years he was there. And the same thing when he's tossed into prison, he ends up pretty much being the assistant warden. The way they describe this. The thing with his master's wife's kind of interesting. One explanation is, she's simply bored. Joseph's a very handsome guy. He's there all day in the house while her husband's off at work. That's how it happened. But there may be one other factor. The text describes him as a as an officer of Pharaoh, and the Hebrew word they use there is saris, and saris in Hebrew has a double meaning. One is court official, but the other is eunuch. And apparently it had that because a lot of court officials in the ancient world were eunuchs. If you were a king, it was actually an advantage. Number one, you could trust them around your harem. And number two, typically they didn't have children, so you didn't have to worry about them angling, to get stuff for their kids or to enrich themselves because they would typically have no family. So if Potiphar were a eunuch, which is possible, that might also explain why he'd have a very frustrated wife at home, who'd be hitting on Joseph. And because then the next section, of course, is Joseph's career in prison, which is chapter 40. Somebody wants to reach chapter 40 through verse 23.
Sure.
I'll read. Sometime later, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt gave offense to their lord, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two couriers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of the chief steward in the same prison house where Joseph was confined. The chief steward assigned Joseph to them, and he attended them. When they had been in custody for some time, both of them, the cupbearer and the baker of Egypt, who were confined in the prison, dreamed in the same night, each his own dream, and each dream with his own meaning. When Joseph came to them in the morning, he said he saw that they were distraught. he asked Pharaoh's couriers who were with him in custody in his master's house, saying, "Why do you appear downcast?" And they said to him, "We have had dreams, and there was no one to interpret them." So Joseph said to them, "Surely God can interpret. Tell me your dreams." Then the chief cupbearer told his dream to Joseph. He said to him, "In my dream, there was a vine in front of me. On the vine were three branches. It had barely budded when it came out in blossoms, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cups and placed the cups in Pharaoh's hand." Joseph said to him, "This is the interpretation. The three branches are 3 days. In 3 days, Pharaoh will pardon you and restore you to your post, and you will place Pharaoh's cup in his hand, as was your custom formerly when you were his cupbearer. But think of me when all is well with you, and do me the kindness of mentioning me to Pharaoh, so as to free me from this place. For in truth I was kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews, nor have done anything here that should have put me in the dungeon." When the chief baker saw how favorably he had interpreted, he said to Joseph, "In my dream there were three open baskets on my head. In the uppermost basket were all kinds of food for Pharaoh that a baker prepares, and the birds were eating it out of the basket above my head." Joseph answered, "This is the interpretation. The three baskets are 3 days. In 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off your head and impale you upon the pole, and the birds will pick of your flesh." And so on the third day, the Pharaoh made a banquet for all his officials. He singled out his chief cupbearer and his chief baker from among his officials. He restored the cupbearer to his cupbearing and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. But the chief baker he impaled, just as Joseph had interpreted. Yet the chief cupbearer did not think of Joseph, he forgot him.
And this is kind of interesting. And the whole story of Joseph really revolves around three sets of dreams. You have the first two dreams, that he dreams when he was a kid, that all the sheaves in the field were bowing down to him. And then the sun and moon and stars were all bowing down to him. Those were the two dreams that got him, they got his brothers angry at him and got him sold into slavery in the first place. And now you have two dreams again uh, when he's in prison, which is eventually going to lead to him being released from prison. And then, of course, the third set of dreams is Pharaoh's two dreams, which ends up with Joseph, reaching the top of his career. I think it's Rashi, one of the interpreters said that the reason that the dreams come in sets of two is the belief that with one dream, you never know. It might just be a coincidence. You can't go by one dream. But if you have two dreams, that kind of confirms it. Then basically God's trying to tell you something. So all the
And
dreams in the Joseph
statistically, we
story,
all know what that means.
yeah, it basically they all come in sets of two, right? Okay. And then the next chapter, chapter 41, um, essentially, this starts with Pharaoh's two dreams. Let's see, this is, somebody wants to read chapter 41 up until, let's see, the first 32 chapters of 32 verses, rather, of chapter 41.
Sure.
Fred, I'm going to have to leave. I will see you next
Okay.
week. See you
Okay.
all. Good
See
seeing
you,
you.
John. So after 2 years' time, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing by the Nile. When out of the Nile there came up 7 cows, handsome and sturdy, and they grazed in the reed grass. But presently 7 other cows came up from the Nile close behind them, ugly and gaunt, and stood beside the cows on the bank of the Nile. The ugly, gaunt cows ate up the 7 handsome, sturdy cows, and Pharaoh awoke. He fell asleep and dreamed a second time. 7 ears of grain, solid and healthy, grew on a single stalk. But close behind them sprouted 7 ears, thin and scorched by the east wind. And the thin ears swallowed up the 7 solid and full ears. Then Pharaoh woke. It was a dream. Next morning, his spirit was agitated, and he sent for all the magician priests of Egypt and all its sages. And Pharaoh told them his dreams, but none could interpret them for Pharaoh. The chief cupbearer then spoke up and said to Pharaoh, "I must make mention today of my offenses. Once Pharaoh was angry with his servants and placed me in custody in the house of the prefect, together with the chief baker. We had dreams the same night, he and I, each of us a dream with a meaning of its own. A Hebrew youth was there with us, a servant of the prefect, and when we told him our dreams, he interpreted them for us, telling each of the meaning of his dream. And as he interpreted for us, so it came to pass. I was restored to my post, and the other was impaled. Thereupon Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he was rushed from the dungeon. He had his hair cut and changed his clothes, and he appeared before Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have had a dream, but no one can interpret it. Now I have heard it said of you that for you to hear a dream is to tell its meaning. Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, Not I. God will see to Pharaoh's welfare. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, In my dream I was standing on the bank of the Nile, when out of the Nile came up 7 sturdy and well-formed cows and grazed in the reed grass. Presently there followed them 7 other cows, scrawny, ill-formed, and emaciated. Never had I seen their likes for ugliness in all the land of Egypt. And the 7 lean and ugly cows ate up the first 7 cows, the sturdy ones. But when they had consumed them, one could not tell that they had consumed them, for they looked just as bad as before. And I awoke. In my other dream, I saw 7 ears of grain, full and healthy, growing on a single stalk. But right behind them sprouted 7 ears, shriveled thin and scorched by the east wind. And the thin ears swallowed the 7 healthy ears. I have told my magician priests, but none has an explanation for me. And Joseph said to Pharaoh, Pharaoh's dreams are one and the same. Pharaoh has been told what God is about to do. The 7 healthy cows are 7 years, and the 7 healthy ears are 7 years. It is the same dream. The 7 lean and ugly cows that followed are 7 years, are also the 7 empty ears scorched by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine. It is just as I have told Pharaoh. Pharaoh has been shown what God is about to do. Immediately ahead of 7 years of great abundance in all the land of Egypt. After them will come 7 years of famine, and all the abundance in the land of Egypt will be forgotten, as the land is ravaged by famine. No trace of the abundance will be left in the land because of the famine thereafter, for it will be very severe. As for Pharaoh having had the same dream twice, it means that the matter has been determined by God, and that God will soon carry it out.
Yeah. So this is the reason again for the double dreams. The other thing you notice here is this really repetitious style. I mean, there's no reason for all these verses where the whole thing is repeated to Joseph. They could have just simply said, that Pharaoh told Joseph his dreams. That would have taken one verse and saved about 6 or 7 verses. And again, you wonder why they do it that way. And the usual theory is this was originally an oral thing. That this was probably being chanted around some shepherd's campfires, for generations before anybody wrote anything down. And so in the oral style, you don't mind the repetition as much. When you read it, in a book, it just doesn't look good. A modern editor would get rid of about a third of this chapter, if it were being published in a modern book. Okay?
I don't know. I kind of like the commentary from Pharaoh. He's like, I've never seen such a thing as this before.
Yeah,
That's kind of fun.
yeah. And to me, we don't really know how long it's taken Joseph to get where he is. Because, you
Mm.
figure he came to Egypt as a 17-year-old kid. You figure it must have taken him several years to get to the point where he's chief steward, of the household of one of Pharaoh's officials. And we don't know how long he was in prison, but before, first of all, he was in prison with these 2 guys before they had their dream. We don't know how long that was. And then, the chief cupbearer forgot about him. We don't know how many years it was between that and Pharaoh's dream. So Joseph could be 20, 25, 30, 35. The Bible really just doesn't give us his age at all. We're never really told. But you get the impression it's probably unfolded over at least 10 or 15 years. It maybe longer before all this could happen to him. And then starting with verse 33 here, um, it goes on for the rest of the chapter to describe how Joseph handled it. Someone wants to read from verse 33 to the end.
Sure.
I'll read.
Oh.
Can I read?
Sure.
Now let Pharaoh seek out a discerning and wise man and send him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh proceed and let him appoint overseers on the land, and he shall prepare the land of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. Let them gather all the food of those approaching good years. Let them amass grain under Pharaoh's authority for food in the cities and safeguarding. The food will be reserved for the land against the 7 years of famine, which will befall the land of Egypt, so that the land won't perish in the famines. The matter appears good in Pharaoh's eyes and in the eyes of all his servants. Pharaoh said to his servants, couldn't we find another like him? A man in whom is the Spirit of God? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has informed you of all this, there can be no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and by your command shall all my people be sustained. Only by the throne shall I outrank you. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, see, I placed you in charge of all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh removed his ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand. He then had him dressed in garments of fine linen, and he placed a gold chain upon his neck. He also had him ride in his second royal chariot, and they proclaimed before him, Avrech. Thus he appointed him over all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh said, okay.
Mike, stop at that point. And, yeah, this probably is the most amazing job interview in history. This guy, this is a felon right out of jail who gets cleaned up and hustled in front of Pharaoh. And in the space of one hour, basically one day, he is now the prime minister of Egypt. Yeah, it's an amazing story. That's
Quite the
probably the
promotion.
hardest part to believe, on the basis of that one thing, Pharaoh decides that he's going to make him his chief minister to run the country. Okay. Um, and then it picks up again on verse 45. Rachel, if you want to read from starting with 45.
Okay. Pharaoh now said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without you none shall lift hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh called Joseph Zaphanath Paneah and gave him Asenath, daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, as a wife. Thus Joseph came to be in charge of the land of Egypt. When Joseph began to serve Pharaoh, king of Egypt, he was 30 years old. Joseph left Pharaoh's presence and traversed the whole land of Egypt. In the 7 years of plenty, the land produced to overflowing. He gathered all the surplus food there was in the land of Egypt from the 7 years. He placed food in the cities. The food that came from a city's surrounding fields he placed in its midst. Thus Joseph heaped up grain as plentiful as the sands of the sea until he left off measuring, for it was beyond measure. 2 sons were born to Joseph before the years of famine arrived, born to him by Asenath, daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. Joseph named the firstborn son Manasseh, for God has made me forget all the troubles I endured in my father's house. And he named the second one Ephraim, for God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. The 7 years of plenty that prevailed in the land of Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began as Joseph had foretold. There was famine in all the lands, but all over the land of Egypt there was food. Yet all the land of Egypt was starving, so that the people cried out to Pharaoh for food. Pharaoh said to all Egypt, "Go to Joseph, do whatever he tells you." The famine had spread across the land, so Joseph opened up all that was in the stores, and he provided for Egypt, for the famine had gained strength in the land of Egypt. And all lands came to Egypt to buy provisions from Joseph, for the famine had taken hold in every land.
So which is kind of unusual. Usually the there's a number of stories in the Bible where there's famine in other places, like with Abraham initially, and they have to go down into Egypt because there's famine, in the rest of the Middle East. The thing with Egypt, because the usual cause of famine was drought, but that's usually why they have the famine. Then other things might be like locust swarms, but the thing with Egypt was it didn't depend on rain. Basically, Egypt was irrigated by the rising of the Nile, so you could have prolonged lack of rain all over the Middle East, and it would not affect Egypt. So this is kind of really weird for Egypt to be undergoing a famine like this. A couple of other interesting things. Joseph marries an Egyptian daughter of an Egyptian priest, and has two sons. And it's a hint that at least in the biblical period, whether you were Jewish or not was patrilineal. It depended on your father, not your mother. Um, because obviously Ephraim and Manasseh are Jews and they're heads of two of the tribes of Israel, whereas today it's matrilineal. And the change appeared to occur sometime during the Roman period, and nobody's exactly sure why we switched from patrilineal to matrilineal. One interesting theory is that it was the influence of Roman law. Roman law, as far as your status, free or slave, depended on your mother, not your father. So a slave mother and a free father, the child was a slave. But a free mother and a slave father, the child was free. And the Jews may very well have been influenced by Roman law and flipped over from patrilineal to matrilineal, during this time. Although again, it's changing again now. In 19, I think 83, the Reform movement decided that it could be either. So if either of your parents is Jewish or Jewish, which has created all kind of problems because now there are kids that have grown up in the Reform movement with Jewish fathers and non-Jewish mothers who are Jews in other Reform congregations, but not Jews anywhere else. And there actually are stories of these some of these kids have had to do conversions in order to marry, an Orthodox mate because they're not considered Jewish. It's really kind of weird. The other thing which is significant later on, it's a small detail here, but it's very important later. Joseph takes all this excess surplus grain and stores it up in the cities. And then when the famine comes, he sells it back to the people. Now you think about it, who produced this grain in the first place? Why doesn't he just give it back to the people? It's really a very clever plan. He sells them their own grain back. It doesn't say that he paid for the grain. He just said he gathered it. And as we'll see later, this actually makes a huge difference in Egyptian society. That's a couple of chapters in the future, but it's really a very important detail. And at this point, the story again shifts back, to Canaan, to Jacob and his sons. Um, Chapter 40. If somebody wants to read the first 7 verses of chapter 42.
Sure. 42, verse 7. Okay. When Jacob saw that there were food rations to be had in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you keep looking at one another? Now I hear," he went on, "that there are rations to be had in Egypt. Go down and procure rations for us there, that we may live and not die." So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to get grain rations in Egypt. For Jacob did not send Joseph's brother Benjamin with his brothers, since he feared that he might meet with disaster. Thus the sons of Israel were among those who came to procure rations, for the famine extended to the land of Canaan. Now Joseph was the vizier of the land. It was he who dispensed rations to all the people of the land, and Joseph's brothers came and bowed low to him with their faces to the ground. When Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he acted like a stranger toward them and spoke harshly to them. He asked them, "Where do you come from?" And they said, "From the land of Canaan to procure food."
Yeah. So there are a couple of interesting things here. Number one is that Benjamin is not allowed to go. And of course, the reason he's special is he's Rachel's other kid. Joseph and Benjamin are Jacob's two children by Rachel. And as far as he's concerned, Rachel's his real wife. He never wanted any of these other women. He never wanted to marry Leah. He was tricked into it. And so, we read about how Joseph gets special treatment from his father, and that's why his brothers hate him. But Benjamin actually is being pampered the same way. Probably the reason Benjamin, didn't have anything bad happen to him is that if Joseph was only 17, Benjamin was probably a little boy at that point, a little child who didn't go out, to work with his brothers anyway. So he was kind of out of the picture. But what this really shows you is that it wasn't just Joseph who was getting special treatment. It was Benjamin also, both of them, Rachel's children. The other thing is that these 10 brothers come down here and don't recognize Joseph. And when you think about it, that is really kind of weird. It may have been 20 years since they saw him last. Now he's a grown, mature man. He's dressed as an Egyptian prince. He's speaking Egyptian to them and pretending not to understand their Hebrew. As we see later, he uses an interpreter. But it's hard to believe, these 10 guys are standing there, and at least one of them say, I've seen this guy before. It's really hard to buy this whole idea that none of his 10 brothers has any inkling who he is. But when you think about it, a lot of Shakespeare's plays run on the same kind of thing. And we think of how many plots in Shakespearean plays, husbands don't recognize wives, children don't recognize parents, brothers don't recognize sisters because they're in some kind of disguise. And, it's really, it can't happen, but you kind of go along with it. You suspend your disbelief and go along with it. I think this is really the case over here. I mean, you just have to believe that none of his 10 brothers recognize him anymore, which again, it's really hard to go along with. Um, and the next, and here Joseph starts this kind of cat and mouse game with them. And he's going to get his revenge on his brothers. And that starts with verse 8 and goes through verse 24. Someone wants to read that.
I can keep trucking along.
Yeah.
All right. For though Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. Recalling the dreams that he had dreamed about them, Joseph said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see the land in its nakedness." But they said to him, "No, my lord, truly your servants have come to procure food. We are all of the sons of the same man. We are being honest. Your servants never have been spies." And he said to them, "No, you have come to see the land in its nakedness." And they replied, "We, your servants, were 12 brothers, sons of a certain man in the land of Canaan. The youngest, however, is now with our father, and one is no more." But Joseph said to them, "It is just as I have told you, you are spies. But by this you shall be put to the test. Unless your youngest brother comes here by Pharaoh, you shall not depart from this place. Let one of you go and bring your brother, while the rest of you remain confined, that your words may be put to the test wherever there is truth in you, or whether there is truth in you. Else by Pharaoh you are nothing but spies." And he confined them in the guardhouse for 3 days. On the third day Joseph said to them, "Do this and you shall live, for I fear God. If you are being honest, let one of your brothers be held in your place of detention, while the rest of you go and take home rations for your starving households. But you must bring me your youngest brother, that your words may be verified, and that you may not die." And they did accordingly. They said to one another, "Alas, we are being punished on account of our brother, because we looked on at his anguish, yet paid no heed as he pleaded with us. That is why this distress has come upon us." Then Reuben spoke up and said to them, "Did I not tell you, do no wrong to the boy? But you paid no heed. Now comes the reckoning for his blood. They did not know that Joseph understood, for there was an interpreter between him and them. He turned away from them and wept. But he came back to them and spoke to them, and he took Simeon from among them and had him bound before their eyes. Then
So,
Joseph gave order. Go ahead.
so basically, this is really startling. I mean, it's been years since they sold him into slavery, and apparently this has been eating at them at some level ever since then. I mean, why would they want to connect these two things? And they don't recognize Joseph, so they're not. It's not that. And immediately, I mean, talk about a guilty conscience. I mean, this is 10, 15 years at least after they did this, and they immediately go to this as the cause of all their troubles. It's really interesting. And let's see, then, then the rest of the chapter, is the next step of the game he's playing with. But someone wants to read the rest of chapter 42.
Sure. He left them and wept. When he came back to them, spoke to them, took Simeon from them, and bound him before their eyes. Joseph gave the command. They were to fill their bags with grain, and his men were to return each one silver to a sack, and give them provisions for the road. Thus he did to them. They loaded their provisions on their asses and went away. When, at the night lodging, one of them opened his sack to give fodder to his ass, he saw his silver. It was in the mouth of his bag. When he said to his brothers, "My silver has been returned. Look, it's in my bag." Their hearts gave out, and trembling, they turned to each other and said, "What is this that God has done to us?" They then came to Jacob their father in the land of Canaan, and told him all that had befallen them, saying, "The man who is Lord of the land spoke roughly to us. He treated us as though we were spying out the land. We said to him, 'We are honest men. We have never been spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of the same father. One is no more, and the youngest is with our father right now in the land of Canaan.' That man, the Lord of the land, said to us, 'This is how I will know that you are honest. Leave one of your brothers with me. Take relief for the starvation of your families, and go and bring your youngest brother to me. Then I will indeed know that you are not spies, that you are honest. I will give you back your brother, and you can pass through the land.' When they emptied their sacks, each one's money bag was in his sack, and when they caught sight of their money bags, they and their father, they were struck with fear. Their father Jacob said to them, 'You have left me bereft. Joseph is no more, Simeon is no more, and now you would take Benjamin from me. All these things have come down on me.' Reuben then said to his father, 'Put my 2 sons to death if I do not bring him back to you. Give him into my hands, and I will return him to you.' But Jacob said, 'My son shall not go down with you. His brother is dead, and he alone remains. If a disaster should befall him on the way that you will be going, you would cause my gray head to go down in anguish to Sheol.' The family bore, the famine
I'll
bore
stop at
heavily.
that point.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's you may have that's the end of the chapter actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the and the odd thing is here again, Joseph is playing this game, keeping them off balance, not letting them know what's happening. And it's interesting the way Jacob handles it. He says he only is left talking about Benjamin. In other words, he really, to this point, still considers his only real sons to be Joseph and Benjamin. Um, and the other interesting is Reuben. When he says to his father, kind of makes this wild kind of gesture. You can kill my 2 kids if I don't bring Benjamin back. And this actually later on, Reuben is the firstborn, and he normally would be the one, to carry on to get the blessing of his father. But later on at the end of Genesis, when Jacob, prophesies what's going to happen to his sons, Reuben is passed over. And one of the reasons that Jacob gives is the phrase he uses is unstable as water. Reuben is too emotional. He doesn't think this out. He just comes out with this wild kind of thing. Yeah, you can kill my kids if I don't bring him back. And this later comes back to haunt him. We'll see it at the very end of Genesis. Um, Let's see. Yeah. And the next part really is the first 14 verses of chapter 43. Someone wants to read that.
Yeah, I'll keep trucking along. But the famine in the land was severe, and when they had eaten up the rations which they had brought from Egypt, their father said to them, "Go again and procure some food for us." But Judah said to him, "The man warned us, 'Do not let me see your faces unless your brother is with you.' If you let our brother go with us, we will go down and procure food for you. But if you will not let him go, we will not go down, for that man said to us, 'Do not let me see your faces unless your brother is with you.'" And Israel said, "Why did you serve me so ill as to tell that man that you had another brother?" They replied, "But the man kept asking about us and our family, saying, 'Is your father still living? Have you another brother?' And we answered him accordingly. How are we to know that he would say, 'Bring your brother here'?" Then Judah said to his father Israel, "Send the boy in my care, and let us be on our way, that we may live and not die, you and we and our children. I myself will be surety for him. You may hold me responsible. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, I shall stand guilty before you forever." For we could have been there and back twice if we had not dawdled. Then their father Israel said to them, if it must be so, do this. Take some of the choicest or choice products of the land in your baggage and carry them down as a gift for the man, some balm and some honey, gum, laudanum, which sounds a lot like laudanum, but I know that's not it.
It is laudanum.
Oh, laudanum? Okay.
Yeah.
Pistachio nuts and almonds. And take with you double the money, carrying back with you the money that was replaced in the mouths of your bags. Perhaps it was a mistake. Take your brother too, and go back at once to the man. And may El Shaddai dispose the man to mercy toward you, that he may release to you your other brother, as well as Benjamin. As for me, if I am to be bereaved, I shall be bereaved.
Yeah. And here the contrast is that Judah comes in with a much more reasonable approach. Instead of this wild kind of thing that Reuben does, he comes in with a much calmer, much better thought out, response. And his father goes along with it. And eventually, of course, Judah's the one, even though he's only the fourth son of Jacob, Leah's fourth child, he's going to be the one who eventually will carry on the line and be the leader in Israel, which is why we're Jews. We're descendants of Judah. Of and here actually this is really the first instance that there's a series of stories that build up Judah, getting ready for Judah to be the leading tribe in Israel, and this is kind of the first step here. And then 15 to the end of the chapter describes that when they actually get down with Benjamin. Someone want to read that one? Sue
Sure.
has disappeared.
Oh, yeah. The men then took this offering, and taking in hand the double portion of silver along with Benjamin, they got going and went down to Egypt and stood before Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the one in charge of his household, "Bring the men into the house and slaughter an animal and prepare it, for these men are going to eat with me at noon." The man did as Joseph said. The man brought the men into Joseph's house. The men were frightened when they were brought into Joseph's house. They thought, "It is on account of the silver that came back in our bags the first time that we're being brought here in order to fall upon us, to pounce on us, to take us as slaves along with our asses." They therefore approached the man in charge of Joseph's household and spoke to him at the entrance of the house, saying, "By your leave, my lord, the last time we came down to buy food, when we got to the night lodging and opened our bags, each one's silver was in the mouth of his bag, the exact amount that had been weighed out, and we have brought it back with us, and we have brought other money to buy food. We don't know who put the silver in our bags." He replied, "You're all right, have no fear. Your God and your father's God has given you a hidden treasure in your bags. Your money reached me." And he brought Simeon out to them. The man then ushered the men into Joseph's house. He supplied water, and they washed their feet, and he gave fodder to their asses. They laid out the offering for the arrival of Joseph at noon, for they had heard that he would eat food there. When Joseph entered the house, they presented to him the offering they had brought into the house, and they bowed down before him to the ground. He asked them how they were, and said, "How is your aged father of whom you spoke? Is he still alive?" They said, "Your servant our father is well, he is still alive." And they knelt and bowed down. He looked up and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and he said, "Is this your youngest brother you told me about?" And he added, "God be gracious to you, my son." Joseph hurried out, for he was so deeply stirred with tender warmth toward his brother that he wanted to weep. He went into an inner chamber, and there he wept. He washed his face, and when he came out, he held himself in check and said, "Serve food." They served him separately, and them separately, and the Egyptians, who usually ate with him, separately, for the Egyptians could not eat food with the Hebrews, since it was an abomination to the Egyptians. As they were seated before him, the firstborn according to his seniority, and the youngest according to his youth, the men looked at each other in amazement. He presented portions of food to them from what was in front of him. Benjamin's portion exceeded all of theirs fivefold, and they drank and grew drunk with him. He commanded the one in charge of his household, saying,
Stop
Oh,
at that point. That's the
yes.
end of the chapter. Okay. So yeah, here again you have these Egyptian food laws. Again, the Egyptians had to eat separately because they're not allowed to eat with Hebrews. And we don't really know whether it's the type of food that's at issue here, or they just can't eat with non-Egyptians. Or that's just a tradition of theirs. It may not be a food prohibition. It may just be a prohibition against eating with non-Egyptians. No, nobody really knows, what this one's all about. And and of course here, he arranges when he seats them, he arranges them from the oldest to the youngest. And you think that might have given them a clue. I mean, the fact that he knows the ages of all these guys, and they still haven't caught on. Even Benjamin, who's probably the closest of all the brothers, to Joseph, think if anybody would recognize him would be him, doesn't. So you sort of have to buy this kind of thing. Um, and then the climax of the story really is chapter 44, going in the 17 verses of chapter of 44. Okay. Sue, do you have your sound back? I guess not. Okay. Right. Well, I'll go ahead and read it. You guys have been doing all the work here. Um, and he commanded the steward of his house, saying, "Fill the men's sacks with food as much as they can carry, and put each man's money in the mouth of the sack. And put my goblet, the silver goblet, in the sack's mouth of the youngest, and his corn money." And he did according to the word that Joseph had spoken. As soon as there was morning light, the men were sent away, they and their asses. And when they were gone out of the city and were not yet far, Joseph said to his steward, "Follow after these men. When you overtake them, say unto them, why have you rewarded evil for good? Is not this in which my Lord drinks, and by which he also divines? You have done evil in so doing." And he overtook them and spoke to them these words. And they said unto him, "Wherefore speaks my Lord such words as these? Far be it from my servants they should do such a thing. Behold, the money which we found in our sacks' mouths, we brought back unto thee out of the land of Canaan. How then should we steal out of the Lord's house the silver or gold? For whomsoever of thy servants it is found, let him die, and we will also be my Lord's bondmen." And he said, "Let it be according to your words. He with whom it is found shall be my bondman, and the rest of you shall be blameless." And then they hastened and took down every man his sack to the ground, and opened every man his sack. And he searched, beginning at the eldest and leaving off at the youngest. And the goblet was found in Benjamin's sack. And then they tore their clothes and they loaded every man his ass and returned to the city. This tearing of a clothes, by the way, this is actually the second time the Bible mentions it. The first time is when Jacob first gets the news. They show him the bloody coat and tell him that Joseph has been killed by a wild beast. And this really is the beginning of the funeral custom of tearing a garment. Of course, in the Bible, it doesn't necessarily mean a mourning for a death. It can be any kind of bad news, any disaster, tearing your clothing. At Orthodox funerals, actually, they still do this. They'll usually tear the lapel of the jacket. Most conservative and reform funerals, or like we do at Beth Israel, what they'll do is pin a black ribbon, on the coat, and then you tear a little bit of the rhythm. It's sort of symbolically rending your clothes. But this story is where the tradition first gets started. Um, let's see, they rent their clothes. And Judah and his brethren came to Joseph's house, and he was yet there, and they fell before him on the ground. And Joseph said unto him, What deed is this that ye have done? Know you not that such a man as I will indeed divine? In other words, I would know it. And Judah said, What can we say unto my Lord? By the way, this is now Judah is being portrayed as a leader of the brothers. He's the one who takes on, actually dealing with Joseph and trying to negotiate with him over this. So it's a second step in a series of stories that build up Judah as the future leader of the tribes of Israel. And Judah said, What shall we say to my Lord? What shall we speak? How can we clear ourselves? God has found out the iniquity of thy servants. And of course, this is kind of a double entendre kind of thing. Because by the iniquity of your servants, he could be talking about the silver goblet, but he could also be talking about their original sin, the selling of Joseph into slavery to begin with. Um, and behold, we are my Lord's bondmen, both we and he also, in whose hand the cup is found. And he said, Far be it from me that I should do so. The man in whose hand the goblet is found, he shall be my bondman. But as for you, get you up in peace unto your father, which is really the things that they fear the most. Having to go back to Jacob now without, without Benjamin. So it's a lose-lose situation. And they can either all stay there as his slaves, or they can go back and tell us their father his worst fears have been confirmed. They've lost another son of his, Benjamin. And this actually is a good place to stop. At the beginning of the next parsha, um, actually, then Judah actually talks to Joseph. And this really, I think, is one of the most beautiful passages in the Bible, what follows after this. That would be a good start for next week. So, anybody have any comments or questions about what we've covered this week?
I mean, this particular story is like it's made for TV. I mean, it would make
really
a
is.
great
Yeah.
show, great movie.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, I'm really surprised that more of the Bible really hasn't been done on TV. Well, I mean, there's some. I think there's a David thing going on now. I think it's on Netflix. Yeah, but you're right. There are a lot of great stories in the Bible that, for some reason, Hollywood has just never done anything with. Actually, I think really, the New Testament's even a more stark contrast because here you have Hollywood is making a bunch of really bad movies about Jesus, and nobody's done anything with Paul. And Paul had a fascinating life. Shipwrecked two or three times, in and out of prison, traveled the whole Mediterranean world. He had an amazing life, and yet nobody's ever done anything with it on the stage or in the movies or on TV.
Hmm.
Okay.
What they decide to put on TV, I don't understand either way. So whatever.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Fred. Hey, thanks for joining us, Michael. We'll see you next week.
I won't be here next week, but in 2 weeks I'll be here. I'll be in
Sounds
Tennessee visiting family.
Great.
Well, have a safe trip.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. See y'all next week then.
See you guys next week.
Take care, guys.
See you.
Bye.